What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about the craziest thing I've ever found while bass fishing. So it was a couple months back. I was just graphing around looking for something to fish, something that was holding fish out on a little neighborhood lake. Just kind of getting dialed in with my electronics, my Humminbird Mega side imaging. And I was kind of cruising along, came up over this little shallow area, and there I saw it. And I was like, that 100% clear and obvious, that's a car. So I told the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, and they just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, cool, yeah, sure, you found a car. But so I'll show you the actual image that I got from this car. And I actually recently went out there. It's still out there. And I scanned it again, looked at it again, got it a bunch of different angles. And we're going to break down and I'll show you why I know it's a car. And then also, I know that there's a bunch of divers and everything like that on YouTube that actually excavates these cars and pulls them out of the water. And maybe with some luck, we can get one of them to come help pull this car out. I mean, at least clean up the lake. I don't know if there's anyone inside. I don't know the story behind it. There's a huge mystery behind it. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it's there. There's a clear shot that it took to go into the water. There's a kind of a road nearby. So let's take a look at it from Google Earth, and then I will dive into the side imaging and show you the actual car itself. And it's really not that deep, but we'll look at that, and then we'll just kind of give a wrap up of what I think happened. But again, until we get someone to dive on this thing and really dive into it more, we're only going to know so much about this car because I'm not equipped to dive down there and look at it. And if I found a dead body down there, trust me, it would not be pretty. I'd be sitting there freaking gasping water, and yeah, it'd freak me out. But maybe with some help, with some Adventures with Purpose or someone else along those lines, we can learn more about this mystery. So let's take a look at it from a Google Earth standpoint. All right, guys, this is Lake Shawnee in Topeka, just a little neighborhood lake off to the east side of Topeka. Kind of looking at it from a macro view, you can kind of see where the car is. All right, zooming in, we can see where the car is, and we can see a couple different roads there. And based on the orientation of the car that I got from graphing it, I feel like there's two different options for how this car went into the water. And we'll get to how I determine the orientation of the car in just a minute. But the first option I believe that could have possibly happened to end up getting this car the way it was is I believe this car was traveling northbound on this road just off to the west, and either it went out of control or someone just cut around that tree and just went straight into the water at this location. They had to be going at a decent speed because the car was probably 20 to 30 feet off the edge of the bank. All right, option two. The car was heading southbound on this road and got out of control, couldn't correct, overcorrected, and ended up in the water this way. I believe this is a far less likely scenario just because of how far the car was out in the water and how fast that guy had to be going. And yeah, I just think this is a far less likely scenario. All right, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. This is what that car actually looked like on my graph. But first, before we really dive into it, let's get an explanation as to what side imaging is and what we're looking at here. All right, the way to imagine side imaging is like a flashlight. So you've got a flashlight going out the left side of the boat, and you've got a flashlight going out the right side of the boat. And the beam of light is basically all of this sonar getting shot out to the objects on the whatever side of the boat you're on. So if the flashlight's the boat itself and it's shooting out left, when it's idling across the bottom, it's looking for stuff, and the ray goes out the entire way. So that's your range. So say the extent on the far left side of the screen is 60 feet, and the light is actually the boat. So I'm scanning 60 feet to the left. And as I'm idling, and as I come across something, the return will be harder. So like say, since this is say it's the car itself, this jig head is the car. So it's going to return back, and it's going to show up as a really light colored image if it's the harder the density it is. So say that jig head, obviously it's shining pretty bright because of the reflectiveness of it, but think of it the exact same way as steel. The harder the object is, the brighter it's going to show up on the actual side imaging itself. Now, what you'll notice is that there is a shadow being cast by the jig head. This is also true with side imaging, and it creates a void behind the object, basically a shadow, and that's often a lot easier to see than the actual object itself. One thing to also keep in mind is the shallower water we're in, the more distorted that shadow becomes. The deeper water we're in, obviously you can see how that shadow is distorted based off of depth. So imagine that shooting out both sides of the boat, and basically when we were idling along, we came across that car and we saw the actual car itself, which is the really light portion, and then we also see the shadow. And in this case, because the car is in such shallow water, we're shooting so low, we can actually see through the windows of the car. Hope that makes sense. All right, this first screenshot we're going to look at is me heading south, and that is roughly the trajectory my boat was on when I captured this image. So the car is going to be off the right side of the boat. All right, this is an actual picture of the car itself sitting about 20 to 25 feet off the right side of the boat. And when I enlarge the picture, you can really see how it's starting to look like a car. The actual hood of the car is on the bottom side of the image, and the trunk is on the upper part of the image. And you can see that the lighter, harder return on the left side of the actual object itself is the actual car, and then the black part is the shadow. And yes, that is the windows you're actually able to see there. We are actually looking through the car with the side imaging. All right, this next image we're going to look at is basically me and the boat going the opposite direction. So going from the bottom up in this image. All right, this is how it looked when I went across that location from that angle showed in previous on the Google Maps. You can really see how that shadow is starting to be distorted. All right, when I blow up the actual image itself, you can really see the car itself on the right side and then the shadow on the left, and you can again see through the windows. So it's my belief that after looking at these images, I'm certain that the car is upside right and that I've got the orientation correct shown for what I was showing on Google Earth. All right, guys, to kind of wrap this up. Now, we've looked at it from a Google Earth standpoint. We've looked at it from a side imaging standpoint. We can see which way the car is facing. We know that it is up, like it is upright. It is not flipped upside down. So we kind of know the trajectory that this whole thing took. And really, I mean, we can't see anyone through the windows on the side imaging. I mean, we can clearly see through the windows. But again, we just don't quite know the extent of the story without getting an actual dive team down there and doing some investigating. Now, there have been more cars pulled from this body of water in the past. There has been bodies found out there. It's Topeka, Kansas. Like there's some crazy stuff that goes down here. I don't know whether it was just an insurance fraud scandal or if someone's actually in the car. I don't know. So it's kind of going to stay open unless we hear back from someone else that's actually got the resources to go down there and dive and look at this thing. So I will for sure keep you updated with anything that I learn. So until then, like, subscribe for more stuff to come. I kind of like this stuff. I kind of got a couple more leads on where another car might be submerged up at Lake Perry. So we might go up there and try to look for it. But until then, like, subscribe. We'll see you guys later.